YouTube. This is Mind Talker Thomas. Welcome to the Mind Talker Show. It's 12:21 p.m. Monday, September 26, 2022. Now, you know how this starts, right? We all know how this starts. If you don't do this one thing particularly, well, there's a few other things. So maybe this is 1B. If you don't do this 1B thing in the afternoon or in the early morning, you're going to probably just regret it. I mean, come on, let's face it. And this one thing is drinking your first street cup of coffee. Let me go grab mine in just a moment. Here it is. Now you just put it to your nose and take a nice deep sniff of the coffee flavor. Yeah. Now that ought to clear up your sinuses a little bit. Then you take a little sip. Oh, yeah. Wilson Rufio says hello. There he is. Hello. Good afternoon. Rufio Wilson says hello. I'm also on the Mind Talker show. I'm here talking to the Mind Talker when you guys aren't calling in on 805-574-9025. So I talk to him instead. Yes, he does. Yes, he does. Thank you so much for talking to me, Rufio. I like it indeed. It's a lot of fun. So you drink a cup of coffee too? Yeah, I do. Go ahead. I'm going to have some right now. Oh, really? Yeah. Yeah. Wow. You like that coffee too? Oh, yeah. I love that coffee. Mm-hmm. So anyway, Wilson Rufio is going to be here with me during this show. So I hope you got your coffee. If not, you better just go right on over into your kitchen. Put some of that First Street coffee into that coffee maker. Make yourself some coffee right now. Put some water in that coffee mug container. Pour it in there. Kettle. What's it called? Coffee pot. Push the power on. You know, don't deal with that time select stuff. Don't deal with that setting the time or setting the time for it to make coffee in the morning. You know for a fact no one has ever had an actual coffee maker that thing worked. Let's get real with each other about that, okay? All you got to do is put the water in it and with the filter and the grounds and grinds and push the power on. That's it. You know, only one person I knew could set that thing to make it go on at the right time. And I'm not going to mention that person's name right now because I feel like it. Got your coffee? Yeah, the coffee's good. Rufio. So I was going somewhere with this earlier. I thought, oh, yes, I needed to mention the biggest, bestest news we have of the day. There's a new online video game store called the Mind Talker Video Game Store on eBay. That doesn't say Mind Talker Video Game Store on eBay, but it's on eBay. And there on eBay, you can buy video games from the Mind Talker store. That's me. It's my store for you if you like video games. Sometimes I like a little video games. So on this show, I will bring out the games that are for sale on that eBay store. Just a moment. Okay. got this one here. Super Mario World 3D for the Nintendo 3DS. Zelda, A Link Between Worlds for the Nintendo 3DS. And The Legend of Korra, A New Era Begins for the Nintendo 3DS. This is what they look like, the Nintendo 3DS. They have a little spot in the back here for your cartridge, your game cartridge. And right now it's got Zelda, A Link Between Two Worlds in it. I've been playing a lot of this game. The original Zelda came out in like 87, I think. I was 11 years old. Can't believe that series has been out that long. It's like 30 years, but it's a game that just, I first saw it on a commercial. Had this really unusual commercial where this guy was running around in like a black suit and a black background, and all he was doing was running back and forth screaming, Zelda, Zelda, Zelda. And then it would shoot to a few of the screenshots of the game. And at the time, I was pretty much into like, the video game series was probably Super Mario Brothers. But anyway, yeah, so those games are offered on my online eBay store. But now, come to think of it, I don't know how to actually route you directly to that store, especially from this stream. So I'm sorry about that. So you'll have to go on eBay and just look those titles up. But I have a strong suspicion if you look them up on eBay, you're just going to find them being sold by someone else on there. There's a lot of stores on there. I mean, you could start a store. It's not, particularly for any one person. Anybody can do it. That's even the better news. You can start a little video game store yourself. Have a few video games you play and sell and trade. And I have these 3. And I was going to buy another one today. To get that on there for one more game and add it to the inventory to the online eBay video game store. Wow. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. And then the other day, standing on the corner, I played out of the Real Book 6th edition. I don't know if I'm going to go through that right now. I might go ahead and put on some music for you. Let's see. And let Wilson take over for a little while. No, really, Wilson was asking me about co-hosting and other things too, a lot of things. But I've decided to go ahead and let him co-host today. Yeah, I do that. Yeah, he doesn't say too much. He really doesn't, but that's why we're going to put some music on, because I'm just going to let you watch him, because sometimes he'll move around. That's kind of what's cool about him. Like, he'll change, or the colors on the painting will change. You're going to have to pay attention for that, because that will happen once in a while. Hilarious. Okay. You ready for this, Rufio? All right, good. You are so damn lucky. Doesn't even begin to amaze me, cease to amaze me.
I don't know how y'all felt, but that's it was smoking. measure y'all's expectations. Everything's different with my head in the clouds. I hit this corner with my foot on the gas. Started sliding, I am losing. Everything's different, just like that. Oh my God, wait and see what will become of me. This frozen heart is screaming that last spring will come for me. So damn lucky that you went on ahead. You said, I'll see you later. Well, I heard what you said, and a few minutes later, I'm sliding. Everything's different again. Oh my God, wait and see what else going on. It's really hard, it's I'm dizzy from all this spinning. How are you thinking that you did all you could when you said my love? Take it slowly, okay, is what I said. Oh my God, wait and see what will become of me. This broken heart is screaming, God, that spring will come just before I was leaving. So easy for me now to just before I got dizzy.
Hello? Hello? Hmm. Well, my friends, looks like somebody just called in, didn't say anything, and hung up. Man, I tell you, that really gets to me, deep down inside of my soul. I just think to myself, Lord, why do they call me and hang up the phone? Why do they call me and hang up the phone? Oh Lord, why do they call me? Hang up the phone. It makes me feel so low. Why do they call me and hang up the phone? Oh my Lord.
Sexual being, running like a blade, to and through the heart, no conscience, one won't help. Get out to the hollow, scream and discretion's down, falling all around in cycles, in circles, constantly consuming, conquering devils. Cause it's time to bring the fire down. Long enough to without feel this this club. But when it comes to your...
Okay, ladies and gentlemen. I'm trying to get into this.
Custom cash card
We're going to watch some live Los Angeles news, friends.
Like select travel.
Great. That was my third red eye this month.
Hello, Andy Ben, if you're out there.
Choose a spending category.
I want to watch some high news, man.
Sir?
Well, your cash back
Los
automatically adjusts for
Angeles.
you. Wonderful.
This is my way of getting in touch with Los
Automatically
Angeles.
adjusts to your top eligible spend category.
Spent some time
Up to
down there a
$500
while
spent
back.
each billing
And
cycle with the
many
Citi
ways,
Custom Cash
actually.
Card.
We're in the lab at UCLA. I got to go see Jim Morrison's locker. It's pretty cool.
And they told me that they really just wanted Andy to get a false sense of security. So they have assured me that they're going to start competing now. And though Andy may have been winning all night long, he didn't end up winning in the end. It's the world's smallest landlocked country in both area and population. Simu Liu.
Reporting on Jeopardy, it looks like, from the other night. Okay.
What did you
that's
write down?
cool.
What is Vatican City?
That is correct. Simu Liu, you are our new Jeopardy champion. Simu advances to the semifinals on Celebrity Jeopardy, and Ego and Andy still got $30,000 donated to the charities of their choice. I'm Dana Devin.
That was cute.
It is cute.
Oh, he was super surprised. It was also cute. Glenn was showing me his concert with Morgan Wallen.
Morgan Wallen last night.
Oh,
Yeah, brought the house down in crypto, man. 2 nights in a row, sold
I
out.
bet that was, wow, 2 nights in a row.
2 nights in a row is good. Oh, well, I only will.
He didn't go. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I was looking at. Yeah. He's cute. All right, outside we go. Hot temperatures again today, but we do have cooler weather on the way. We'll get to those 7 days. But on this Monday afternoon, temperatures will be above average once again. Long Beach camera showing us sunny skies, and that'll be the story for at least the next few days. The marine there will return by the end of the week. In Long Beach, it is 84 degrees, 89 in Fullerton, 83 downtown, 95 already in Van Nuys,
72 in
94
Santa
Lancaster,
Barbara.
73 in Big Bear, which is 2 degrees warmer than this time yesterday, 7 degrees warmer in San Bernardino, and 3 degrees warmer in Lancaster right now. So the air quality, good to moderate, closer to the coast. Whenever we see those orange on there, that is unhealthy for sensitive groups. And today we see a red dot. That means unhealthy air for everyone. So not a good idea to be outdoors if you're in one of those sensitive groups. High pressure remains in place. It will impact us for the next several days, but a trough of low pressure, notice the left of your screen, that's going to start to move in Wednesday and Thursday. Onshore flow returns, temperatures cool off. Everybody's happy that it finally feels like fall. That's what will happen this week. Heat advisory in effect for the orange shaded area, including those Orange County beaches until Wednesday. The excessive heat warning, that is in effect for everyone in hot pink, and that expires tomorrow night. Winds will pick up this afternoon. The gusts 20, 25 miles an hour, a little bit stronger in the Inland Empire, and that'll continue through the evening, but the winds will die down for us overnight. Santa Barbara County, though, you'll continue to see some pretty strong winds later into the evening. Temperatures across the country right now. Feels like fall on the East Coast, 75 in New York. It's hot in New Orleans, 90 degrees, mid-80s in Dallas, and 100 degrees right now in Phoenix. For the mountain communities, upper 70s for the next 3 days, mid-70s on Thursday, low 70s by Friday, and that's where temperatures will stay for the weekend. St. Gabriel Valley, upper 90s for the next couple of days. You cool off a little bit Wednesday, cooler on Thursday, and the 80s are back Friday into the weekend. For the high desert, triple digits through tomorrow, 99 degrees on Wednesday. Temperatures gradually start cooling off for you. You will make it back to the low 90s for the weekend, still above average though for this time of year. Inland Orange County, mid 90s through Wednesday, cooler on Thursday. The 80s are back on Friday. Temperatures will be normal Saturday and slightly
I
lower on
think
Sunday.
we should explore new solutions.
Grammarly suggestions catch when your tone might undermine.
Oh, looks like Rolling Stones got a new album out. So we get to hear a little bit of it right now. That's how strong my love is.
Congratulations. Well done, my friend. You've done it again. You've gone and broken another heart. Yeah, you've torn it apart. You've done it before. Hope to do it some more. Got it down to a final. Remember the first time you tried to do it to me. My girl won't fall. Just wait and see. Just wait and see. Congratulations. Congratulations. Gone and broken another heart. Yeah, you tore me apart.
Yeah, that was nice, right? I enjoyed that. Thought I'd go to YouTube here and check out the Jazz Education Network. It says here it has 824 subscribers, 156 videos. The Jazz Education Network is dedicated to building the jazz arts community by advancing education, promoting performance. Promoting performance, that sounds good. Let's see, because I perform every week, Wednesday, 7 to 10 p.m. at Bill's Place, open mic, music night. Come and check it out. Had a blast last week. Let's do it again. Okay, so Jazz Education Network. Let's see. 5 years ago. It's been a little while, but looks like Jeff Coffin is in the playing there. I guess the one video they really, or the newest one they really want to promote is the 2020 Generations Jazz Festival. I wonder kind of what happened to the other 2 years, but let's check out what they do have. Things happen. People practice.
Applications for the 2020 Generations Jazz Festival are open now on a first-come, first-served basis. The festival will take place during the Jazz Education Network's 2020 annual conference in New Orleans at the Hyatt Regency between January 7th and January 10th. Join us in this enriching event where world-class education is delivered in a totally non-competitive, nurturing environment to your students. Participating combos, big bands, and jazz ensembles will perform for 30 minutes and immediately following their performance, receive a 30-minute clinic session with world-class clinicians featuring many of today's biggest names in jazz. In addition to participating with the Generations Jazz Festival, your students will have access to all of the hundreds of incredible clinics, masterclasses, and concerts associated with the Gen Conference. This is an incredible opportunity for schools throughout the world to celebrate America's true art form, rub shoulders with today's hottest jazz talent in attendance at the conference, and have an educational experience they will never forget. Space is extremely limited, so reserve your spot today.
Are you drinking your coffee? You better be drinking your coffee. And if you're not, you better get a refill, man. I just about need to refill my coffee. Oh, yeah. Thank you so much for tuning in. This is Mind Talker Thomas. With the Mind Talker Show, we feature talks about psychology, philosophy, music, arts and crafts, things like that. Saxophone. Yeah. 805-574-9025. You want to call in? It's 12:56 p.m. Monday, September 26, 2022. Monday. Ooh, Monday. Yike. Ooh. Rough day for a lot of folks. Rough day for a lot of folks. I understand. If you're thinking you're having a rough day, call me. Come on, let's talk about it. 805-574-9025. Rufio, how you doing? Have you taken over for a little while?
No, not at all.
Okay, cool. I want them to hear some Drake and dance. How much I love that.
No, I know. I love the new.
As the sun, we came from the ocean, once our ancestral home, so that one day we could all return to our birthright, the great celestial dawn. We are the children of the sun. Our journey's just begun. Some flowers in our hands. We are the children of the sun. There's room for everyone. Some flowers in our hands. and snow. We marveled at the night sky and what may lie beyond. We burned our friends to the elemental ones, made sacrifices for beauty, peace, and love. We are the children of the sun. Our kingdom will come. Sunflowers in our hair. We are the children of the sun. Our carnival's begun. Our songs will fill the air. And you know it's time to look for reasons why. Just reach up and touch the sky. To the heavens we will sing. We are the children of the sun. Our journey has begun. All the older children come out at night and meet soulless, great hunger in their eyes. Unaware of the beauty that sleeps tonight. And all the queen's horses and all the king's men will never put these children back together again. We are the children of the sun. We are the children of the sun. Sometimes I feel like I wanna live far from the metropolis. Just walk through that door. Sometimes I feel like I wanna fly, reach out to the painted sky, a president to the wind, a bird on the sometimes I feel the ocean in my blood, see rain in the sky above, rest all bright tears. And now those tears leave a taste on my tongue, like the warm rush you get from black opium, black Sometimes I feel like I wanna leave behind all these memories and walk through that door. Outside, the black night calls my name, but all roads look the same. They lead nowhere. They lead
Fluorostore's like a personal bouncer in your gut, a gut protector. It protects by helping flush out bad bacteria to make room for the good. Other probiotics don't do that. Maybe they should get bounced. Fluorostore, real protection for a resilient gut.
peaceful state. Full plate. Wait, are you my blind date? Dancing crew, trip for two, nail the final interview. Buy or lease, masterpiece, inside joke. Artichoke, gang with Doug, brand new mug. Come here, kid. Give me a hug. The more you want to do, the more we want to do. Boosters designed for COVID-19 variants are now available. Brought to you by Pfizer and BioNTech.
Fluorostore Select Gut Boost is a dual-action probiotic and prebiotic that works harder. First, it helps flush out bad bacteria. Then, the prebiotic feeds the good bacteria. Try it today for a more resilient gut and a more resilient you.
I've been feeling low. Around my knees, what I'm seeking. I take a taste of what's coming. On my way to something better. What I want is what I do not got. But what I need is all around me. Reach and search and never stop. And I said, you could keep me floating, just following with you, till I get to the end this time I hold my hand. You could keep me floating, just following with you, I get back to you. Sometimes jamming things slide away, keep me swinging. I like to show you what's inside, but that's I don't care if you don't like it. But chaos is all about. Sometimes I walk through your skull, sometimes I take a swear. So don't care, so don't care, but real doesn't play. The day is gone, I'm on my back, staring up at the ceiling. I take a drink, sit back and relax, smoke my mind to make me feel better for a small time. What I want is what I've not got, when what I need is all around me. Reaching, searching, never stop. And I said, you could keep me floating just for a while, till I get to the end of this tunnel home. Mommy, you could keep me floating just for a while, till I get back to you. Sometimes I take a Jimmy thing just to keep me swinging. I show you what's inside, but that's only you don't like it. But chaos will all about. Well, sometimes I want it, yes, God knows. Sometimes I just say, so don't care, so don't care, but as I'm feeling. So I take a taste of what's below. Come away. You could keep me floating just for a while, till I get to the end of this tunnel of me. You could keep me floating just for a while, till I get back to you. Sometimes I take a Jimmy thing just to keep me swinging. I like to show you what's inside, but that's all I care if you don't like it. But chaos will all about. Sometimes I walk in your skull, sometimes I swear. So don't care, so don't care, but real doesn't feel.
Grammarly makes communication at work one click simpler. Whether you're looking for a new job or you love the one you have, Grammarly can help you communicate with confidence. Concise writing means fewer miscommunications. Grammarly can help streamline your message so it reads loud and clear. We can even check the tone of your emails to help you build relationships at that new dream job.
Yes. Thank you so much. This is Mind Talker Thomas with the Mind Talker Show. Please give me a call at 805-574-9025 if you'd like to be on the show. It's 1:33 p.m. Just turned 34. Monday, September 26, 2022. Welcome. So, what did you think of that last series of musical interludes there, Wilson, Rufus? Yeah, they were pretty good. I liked them quite a bit. Yeah, he did. Yeah, I did too. I really did. I really do. I still do. Thank you so much for listening. I appreciate it, Mind Talker. I guess I got to admit the best part of my job is when I don't get a call, ladies and gentlemen, because I realize that a lot of you are a lot better off than I thought. I'm really glad about that. Really glad to hear that. That's fantastic. Quiet day here in Arroyo Grande today. Nice and sunny, though. Nice and sunny. Those of you who are reined in somewhere in the world, well, wish you were here. Cloudy sky, but bright sun shining through it. And let's see what else we got for the show right now. You know, I didn't plan this show too good. And yeah. Steve, if you're out there, I hope Texas is good. I hope it's good. Nathan, if you're out there, I hope Seattle is good. Yeah. Matt Wheeler, if you're out there, I hope Mountain View is good. Andy Ben, if you're out there, I hope Los Angeles is good. Scott, if you're out there, I hope Arroyo Grande or wherever you is, Santa Maria is good. Sarah, if you hear this, I hope you're well. I hope San Luis is good right now. Good weather. It's usually a little warmer over there, but you never know. Let's see, who else? Ground control to Major Tom. Let's see what else is on now. YouTube, bring it to me. Let us hear it. Had that little bit of news bite from Los Angeles. That was nice to hear about Los Angeles for a little while. Let us see on YouTube. What are they going to show us? First video. Bringing it in there. Your free psychic reading now. Wow. Okay. I'll tell you what. I'll tell you your future is good. It is good. And if you don't believe me, you can contact this Your Free Psychic Reading Now thing on Medium Maria ad. She'll tell you about your future. Let's see. Homeless man asked for bread and got. Let's see. We have a short here. Let's see.
I just asked you, can I help you with the bread, money for bread?
Money for bread. Exactly.
Oh, thank you.
Yes.
I appreciate it.
All right.
I want to cry so hard.
Yeah.
Good, what you give me?
Oh, take this also.
Oh, come on.
Yeah.
Oh, come on.
Yeah, that is
Don't
yours.
do that.
No, that is yours, brother.
Let me cry.
What is it?
Oh, man.
Yeah, that
Oh,
is
you
yours.
joking, man. Get a hold, you joking, man.
Yeah, that is yours.
Oh, come on, man.
Yeah.
Let me cry, man.
No, it's okay, brother.
You know what? Thank you, God. I will pray for you.
Oh,
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, my brother.
Yeah.
Hey, take this. I can now. You
Yeah.
can't do that now.
Take it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Man. Oh, get a
Take it.
hold.
One,
Why?
1, 2, 3. That's
Why?
the bonus. And it's
Why?
yours. Because God loves you.
I just asked you, can I
This homeless man asked this guy for just some money for bread, and this guy looks like this is in a foreign country. It doesn't look like U.S. bills, and they have a little bit of an accent, so I don't think they're in the U.S. But it looks to me like this guy was just given like nearly $500 and some groceries, and the guy was blown away. He really was. He was very, very thankful. If you go out there on the streets and really ask somebody for money, you're most likely to get $1 or $2, or you're even more than that likely to just get told some respite or cursing or denial and frustrations. And anyway, this guy asked for some money for bread, and he got a whole lot more than he expected, and it was really nice to watch because it looks like the guy had been around asking money for bread for quite a while, and the way the guy was asking was very humble, and I just feel like people who go around and ask that humble usually don't get a very good response. And fortunately, he got a great response in this video. I was very surprised. And yeah, pretty cool. Pretty cool video. Yeah, I'll give it a thumbs up. I liked it. And it was a short. It was a really good short. Some of the shorts, it's just like they don't make any sense, and there's no entertainment value whatsoever, but that was very entertaining. I know, huh? Strange. But charity can be entertaining, but it's pretty much, charity can almost be entertaining sometimes. It happens so rarely, or it rarely gets videotaped. That's what it really is. You never see anything hardly like that videotaped. You can almost wonder when you watch it, is this just two actors messing with me? But it looks really legit. But things are not as they seem, is what I've heard, what I've been told. Something to wonder about. Oh, Linkin Park, Hybrid Theory. I can't listen to this whole album. But there's an intensity in this music. There's an intensity to this music that reminds me very much of being about 18 years old, I think. And even though there was really intense bad feelings during that time, there were really intense good feelings. And what I like about it is when you get this Hybrid Theory from Linkin Park, you get that experience. Oh, they keep giving me a trailer when I back up. Oh, you're not ready for it. I just want to. There we go.
Stress me first and how the pressure was fed. But I know just what it feels like. A voice in the back of my head. But the face that I hold inside. Face that I wakes when I close my eyes. Face that I watch every time I lie. Face that laughs every time I fall.
It watches everything.
So I know that when it's time to sink or swim. The face inside is hearing me. Ragged and my skin. It's like a paranoid looking over my mouth.
It's like a whirlwind inside of my head. It's like a stop what I'm hearing with it.
Point out all the mistakes to me. You got a face on the inside too. Your paranoia is probably worse. I don't know what's up me even first, but I know what I can't stand. Everybody acts in the fact of the matter is I can't add up to what you can. But everybody has a face that they hold inside. Face that awakes when I close my eyes. Face that watches every time they lie. Face that laughs every time they fall. Watches everything. So you know that when it's time to sink or swim, that the face inside is watching you too. Right inside. It's like a paranoid looking over my back. It's like a whirlwind inside of my head. It's like I can't stop what I'm hearing within. It's like the face inside is right under the skin. It's like a paranoid looking over my back. It's like a whirlwind inside of my
So ass, bitch, I'm coming out swinging so fast that I make your eyes spin. You getting knocked the fuck out like.
This is a public service announcement brought to you in part by Slim Shady. The views and events expressed here are totally fucked and are not necessarily the views of anyone. However, the events and suggestions that appear on this album are not to be taken lightly. Children should not partake in the listening of this album with laces in their shoes. Slim Shady is not responsible for your actions. Upon purchasing this album, you have agreed not to try this at home. Anything else?
Yeah. Don't do drugs.
Hi, my name is. My name is. My name is. Slim Shady. Hi, my name is. My name is. My name is. Slim Shady. Hi, my name is.
Excuse me.
My name is. Slim Shady.
Can I have the attention of the class
My name
for
is.
1 second?
My name is. Slim Shady.
Hi, kids. Do you like violence? Wanna see me stick 9-inch nails to each one of my eyelids? Wanna copy me and do exactly like I did? Try sit and get fucked up worse than my life is? My brain's dead weight. I'm trying to get my head straight, but I can't figure out which Spice Girl I wanna impregnate. And Dr. Dre said,
Slim Shady, you a basic.
uh-uh.
Why's your face red, man? You wasted.
Well, since age 12, I felt like I'm someone else, cause I hung my original self from the top bunk with a belt. Got pissed off and ripped Pamela Lee's shit off and smacked it so hard I knocked the clothes backwards like Chris Paul. I smoke a fat pound of grass and fall on my ass faster than a fat bitch who sat down too fast. Come here, slut. Shady, wait a minute. That's my girl, dog. I don't give a fuck. God sent me to piss the world off.
Hi, my name is. My name is. My name is. Slim Shady. My name is. My name is. My name is. Slim Shady. My name is. My name is. My name is. Slim Shady. My name is. My name is. My name is. Slim Shady.
My English teacher wanted to flunk me in junior high. Thanks a lot. Next semester I'll be 35. I smacked him in his face with an eraser. Chased him with a stapler. Stapled his nuts to a stack of paper. Walked in a strip club. Had my jacket zipped up. Flashed the bartender. And stuck my dick in a tip cup. Extraterrestrial. Running over pedestrians in a spaceship while they screaming at me. Let's just be friends! 99% of my life I was lied to. I just found out my mom does more dope than I do. I told her I'd grow up to be a famous rapper. Make a record about doing drugs and name it after. You know you blew up when the women rush your stands and try to touch your hands like some screaming other fans. This guy right past, so ask for my autograph. So I signed it. Dear Dave, thanks for the support, asshole.
Hi, my name is. My name is. My name is. Slim Shady. My name is. My name is. My name is. Slim Shady. My name is. My name is. My name is. Slim Shady. My name is. My name is. My name is. Slim Shady.
Stop the tape. This kid needs to be locked away. Get him! Dr. Dre, don't just stand there, operate. I'm not ready to leave. It's too scary to die. I'll have to be carried inside the cemetery and buried alive. Am I coming or going? I can barely decide. I just drank a fifth of vodka. Dare me to drive? Go ahead. All my life I was very deprived. I ain't had a woman in years. My palms are too hairy to hide. Clothes ripped like the Incredible Hulk. I spit when I talk. I fuck anything that walks. Come here. When I was little, I used to get so hungry I would throw fits. How you gonna breastfeed me, mom? You ain't got no tits. I lay awake and strap myself in the bed with a bulletproof vest on and shoot myself in the head. Bang! Steaming mad. And by the way, when you see my dad, yeah, tell him that I slit his throat in this dream I had.
My name is. My name is. My name is.
Okay, let's see. Oh no. Oh. Okay. Wow, my friend Nasty Nathaniel has done a lot of audits on YouTube. They're really awesome to watch. It's crazy, some of the interactions, you know, because you never know how people are going to treat you in public. Anyway, speaking of which, treating you in public, his last video had 7.8 thousand views. And I think the reason I need to mention it is because with 53.9 thousand subscribers, okay? And his last video uploaded is entitled Canadian Border Police, and police is in all exclamation. I mean, all capitals with an exclamation mark at the end. And it was streamed 1 month ago and had 7.8 thousand views. Put it on here.
Doesn't it seem like your search engine has its own agenda, replacing the results you're looking for with the ones they prefer? Introducing Neva, the search engine.
So yeah, he's walking along some what looks like lakeside or oceanside property. Looks like a lake. Doesn't look like the ocean. And there's a train going by, and he hasn't said anything yet. But according to what he says later, in general, he was trying to cross the Indian-Canadian border, I guess. Is that a cat?
Hey, Southeastern Pennsylvania Community Watch.
All right. Okay, what happens is when you replay the video, you get the live chat replay back. So you can see all these things that.
Yes, it is.
While he's recording the video, which is pretty cool. They kind of like rooting him on. But eventually, what happens here in the video is apparently, according to him, he gets chased by the police.
I'm live. I think I got the Canadian Border Patrol on me. Folks, I might be getting arrested. I'm not sure yet.
Yeah,
so I'm yeah, I got your email. Yeah, thanks, brother. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm gonna pause the video there. So he's just walking along the border, but he's recording. And some, I guess you're not supposed to record in certain areas, so that's what they're not happy about. And I don't know if he's gotten arrested. I don't know if he's in jail. I don't know anything because it just looks like this was his last video. But I hope he's all right because I know he's just an auditor, and it's actually legal to do what he does. It's just those laws are kind of new, and some people don't know about them. But with the freedom of speech, including video, it's the thing. You can record video in public. That's all he's trying to do is strengthen that belief, because that's pretty important to a democratic society. You could say, particularly if you didn't believe in, or maybe not believe, but see audio and video from a TV as being very easy to manipulate by the powers that be if they wanted to. That's the thing that's about TV. It's like you can't spend your life watching the TV. But anyway, it's funny to get into that while we're on TV. But anyway, YouTube. Yeah, so I guess I'll play some more of this, but it's just kind of stressful to listen to because it sounds like he's being chased by, where he says there was a helicopter and that some people came upon him. And near the video, you don't see the people who came upon him, by the way. So maybe he's playing a trick on us. Man, I hope you are. And it's a good trick, man. Got me to go ahead and put this on here and call out and say, man, I hope if he's in trouble that some friends or lawyers would get on over there and help him get out of jail, because he's just a videographer. And a really good auditor on YouTube. There's some really great videos where he just utilizes free speech. I'm much more entertaining than that, because that's entertaining enough. You get people talking about what that's all about. Reality shows are big. It's pretty much like that too. So Nathan, I hope you're well. We're going to go to something else. I don't know how to contact you from this. necessarily. All right, hold on. Let me back up. Is there some way to talk to you through this? Because that's the thing about these YouTube channels, except for the comments. But if he's nowhere able to actually... Okay, someone 1 month ago texts, "Let us know you're okay, Nate. It's not like you to live this level of thug life." And there are 3 replies to that. "He is in one of our dungeon right now. Ha ha ha." And then that's Stephanie St. Germain. Ha 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 ha. That's only 2 replies. Maybe the other reply is under this. I don't know. Being Canadian nasty, at least if the RCMP has to beat on you, they will likely apologize while doing it. This is the problem with bail. They're not going to release him in Canada. Should take him out to a random spot on the Alaskan border and release him there. Jeez, what's going on? Okay. Okay, well, let's look at something else here. What are podcasts? All right. Let's see. Oh. Fall asleep to Bill Burr on conspiracy theories. Oh, okay. Well, here's a subject that applies the psychology. Okay, I like that a lot. Oh, psychedelics. Ooh, okay. And this one's got Jordan Peterson, it looks like, on it. So let's go into that. What do you think about that, Rufius? I think he would find it a little strange you talking to some artwork, Chuck. Well, that's what makes this. That's what makes this show a little entertaining. I do different things. Now we're going to listen to the psychology of psychedelics with Roland Griffiths and Jordan B. Peterson. It looks like they're pushing a book too, right on.
How to treat opioid addiction from home in 2022. With a new year, I'm going for a clean slate. I really want to work.
Print or audio format. You could use the links we provide below or buy through Amazon or at your local bookstore. This new book, Beyond Order, provides what I hope is a productive and interesting walk through ideas that are both philosophically and sometimes spiritually meaningful, as well as being immediately implementable and practical. Beyond Order can be read and understood on its own, but also builds on the concepts that I developed in my previous books, 12 Rules for Life, and before that, Maps of Meaning. Thanks for listening and enjoy the podcast. I'm very pleased today, on this Good Friday, as it turns out, to welcome Dr. Roland Griffiths, PhD, professor in the Departments of Psychiatry and Neurosciences and director of the Center for Psychedelic and Consciousness Research at the Johns Hopkins University School of Medicine, and author or co-author of more than 400 scientific research publications. And I should let those of you who aren't that familiar with scientific enterprise know that 3 publications is roughly equivalent to a PhD thesis, all things considered, in the biologically oriented or psychologically oriented research domain. So that means that Dr. Griffiths has been involved in something approximating 150 PhDs. And if you just think about that for a minute, then you can understand what that means. About 20 years ago, he initiated a research program at Johns Hopkins, which is one of the world's foremost universities, investigating, of all things, transformative psychological experiences, the mystical type and insightful type experiences occasioned by the classic psychedelic psilocybin, the active component in what are popularly known as magic mushrooms. His research has indicated that the participants in his studies rate their experiences of psilocybin use as among the 5 most personally meaningful of their lives, and later attribute to them enduring positive changes in moods, attitudes, and behaviors months to years after the experience. He's also conducting a series of intense related studies of brain imaging and drug interactions, examining the pharmacological and neural mechanisms of psychedelic action. He's conducted a series of extremely interesting and well-received therapeutic studies with psilocybin, including the treatment of psychological distress in cancer patients, and more specifically, fear of death, major depressive disorder, nicotine addiction, so smoking cessation, anorexia nervosa, and various other psychiatric disorders. His research group has also conducted a series of survey studies characterizing both naturally occurring and psychedelic occasion transformative experiences, including mystical experience, entity and God encounter experiences, near-death experiences, and experiences that have been associated with those who have had them, with reduction in depression, anxiety, and proclivity for substance use. He's also engaged in a series of ongoing studies in healthy volunteers, in beginning and long-term meditators, and most interesting, as far as I'm concerned, in practicing religious leaders. And so, well, any one of those topics would do for 2 hours, but we're going to try to delve into as many as possible in this following conversation. And so thank you so much for agreeing to talk to me. I'm extremely excited about this conversation and have been thinking about it for weeks.
Well, it's a great pleasure to join you, Jordan. You and I met some 15 or 16 years ago at a retreat in California, and frankly, as this work has unfolded and as I've followed your fascinating course, Maps of Meaning, and your other books, I really became intrigued by having a conversation with you about all this. And so I'm very grateful for this opportunity, and also delighted that you and Tammy are now back in
the land of the living.
in the land of the living, right? So yeah, thank you.
Well, yeah, I was really taken with our first meeting. I remember that was just before you were about to publish the first of what are really a series of revolutionary papers, and I would say revolutionary not only for their findings, but for the mere fact that they're being conducted at all. I mean, the psychedelics burst into Western consciousness in the late 1950s and caused so much trouble and distress that they were rapidly made illegal. And that was the end of research really for, 20 years? More than that?
Yeah, more than that. Yeah.
And I thought that was a complete catastrophe, because as a psychologist, my sense was that the most interesting possible domain of study for a truly curious psychologist was the mystical domain that appeared to be opened up by these psychedelic substances, which indicated something that we do not understand, in my opinion, at all.
Yeah, absolutely right. But by the time I got to graduate school, that was University of Minnesota in the area of psychopharmacology, which is a predecessor to neuroscience. The idea of studying psychedelics was entirely off the table. As a matter of fact, it was considered a third rail issue to even suggest interest in that area.
It was a career-destroying interest.
Yeah, it was.
Let alone a pursuit. Well, I was so interested in meeting you, and when we met in California, we went to this conference on awe, which actually turned out to be quite a good conference. It was a small conference. There was about 30 of us, if I remember correctly. off for 3 days, for the full days. And there were really a series of extremely interesting experiences. We did laughing meditation at one point, which I found extremely interesting and quite easy, but I couldn't duplicate it myself at home. But I was really struck by you in particular, because you're not, there was nothing about you that I would have associated with the probability of restarting the investigation into psychedelics in the scientific community. And that's a compliment. That's the deepest compliment, because it seems to me that the reason you were able to pull this off is because you're, what would you call it? Surprisingly sensible and level-headed. And so I'm very curious about why it was that it was you that was able to get through all the regulatory, social, career hurdles, psychological hurdles, all of that, ethical hurdles, and actually managed to establish this research program and at such a prestigious university. Why do you think you were able to do that?
Part of it was the innocence with which I came into the area. So I came into the area having initiated a meditation practice, and I was trained as a radical behaviorist in psychopharmacology, and which means that you don't pay any attention to motives or thoughts. Those are irrelevant. You want to focus on behavior.
Observable behavior. It's great scientific training to be trained as a rigorous behaviorist, though.
Yeah, and but even in graduate school, I was curious about interiority and had tried to do some meditation, but like so many, when I tried, it became hopelessly difficult. 3 minutes felt like 3 hours. And so I set that aside. I went about my developing my career in psychopharmacology at Johns Hopkins, became internationally prominent in drug abuse pharmacology, and then 25 years ago started a meditation practice again. And this time there was something fundamentally different about it. And I don't know why, but I engaged with it, and it became really intriguing to me. And there were, states of consciousness that emerged from that, getting me to ask questions about the nature of spiritual and transformative experience.
When there's a big war going on somewhere in the universe, that always reflects on the markets, which makes people like me happy because we're the one making money off it. I'm the CEO of a industrial corporation in EVE Online. We're a 5-man operation, and we specialize in manufacturing and delivering fully fitted chips in bulk. After huge battles where people lose, thousands of ships, then the next day what they're doing is they're reshipping, right? This is where my corporation comes in. When we receive an order from the client, the first thing we do is separate everything, we analyze it, we look at all of the ship holes, all of the rigs, the ammo, the modules, and then everybody just gets to work. Some of us are going to be specialized in mining or keeping an eye on the stockpiles. And these primary resources, they will be picked up by someone else to refine into components that you can start using for manufacturing. Then in order to do this, they're also going to need a blueprint that is researched and ready to be used for production. It's a special kind of fun setting up the entire process from the raw minerals to the finished product. So imagine an alliance of thousands of people that needs to refit the entire fleet. They just have to say, I want this, and it just gets delivered to their doorstep. One of the most magical things in EVE is there's so many different ways to play and different things to do that it can appeal to completely different people. I think what makes industrialists different is they're not driven by conflicts. They're the other side of the coin, where they find their enjoyment in providing something for other people. What they do is absolutely key for everything else that happens in the universe. Like there would be no combat if there was no ships being built.
just $67. You can make as many videos as you want, and you never need to pick up a camera or use any fancy editing software. With Doodly, you drag, you drop, you tweak some settings, and boom, video done. It'll take you just a few minutes. So, let's hear from the Doodly creator, Brad, to see why Doodly is so easy to use and why you should grab this offer right now.
Hi, I'm Brad Callen, and in this video, I'm going to show you how anyone can quickly and easily create doodle videos, just like the one you're watching right now, using Doodly. Alright, here I am inside the Doodly software, which is available for Mac and PC. You'll notice that you can choose the style of your video, selecting from whiteboard, blackboard, greenboard, glassboard, and for more advanced users, you can even use a green screen background, giving you lots of control over the video style. In this example, let's create a nice looking whiteboard doodle video. You'll notice that Doodly makes it super easy to create your own doodle videos with done-for-you scenes, hundreds of characters, a huge selection of props and images, royalty-free music, and even text. And for the ultimate in customization, you can even upload your
what's going on with meditation. I didn't have a strong religious grounding or background. As a matter of fact, I had flunked out of confirmation school and in the 6th grade. But there was something really compelling, and it got me reading about different meditation traditions, different religious traditions. I was just trying to understand this whole area of spirituality, and then came to be reintroduced, and I was reintroduced incidentally by Bob Jesse, who organized that conference we went to, and he's an engineer who founded a group called the Council on Spiritual Practices. And I got reintroduced to the idea, well, you know, Roland, if you're interested in spiritual experience, if you want to investigate that, take another look at the psychedelics. And so I came into this just out of raw curiosity, and frankly, I would have to say that my intrigue with the nature of these experiences was so compelling that it made me question whether I should be allocating all my time to running around the world and giving conferences and giving papers and doing studies on the next abuse liability risk for a new compound. And so
that in itself seems quite remarkable. Okay, so let me summarize that to some degree. So you had rigorous scientific training, and of the least mystical kind possible in some sense, because that's a good way of characterizing behaviorism. No concentration whatsoever on subjective experience, and the reduction of everything to measurable, to that which can be objectively measured. And I would say, like, some of the most impressive work ever done in psychology was done by behaviorists. Like Jeffrey Gray is a good example. He's an absolute genius, and that all came out of that behavioral tradition. And so did, I think, the field of neuroscience itself. So you established your credibility methodologically, but also as a communicator within that domain. So what do you think you had for a publication record by the time you started the meditation practice and followed this other interest?
Well, I mean, at that point, I was a full professor. I had a long history of publication in drug abuse pharmacology. And in that sense, we did measure subjective effects and euphoria and things like that. But I was very well established in that field, had done also a whole parallel set of studies in animal behavioral pharmacology and drug abuse, looking at physical dependence and drug self-administration.
Right. So there was no way by that time of casually dismissing any interest that you might manifest. You'd already established yourself and as a highly credible researcher. And so that was a precondition for the next move. Why do you think your interest in this alternative domain, let's say, became so intense that it was able to displace an already developed expertise and a fully functioning career in this other direction? What was going on?
Well, there's something very compelling about the nature of these transformative experiences, and that's what, you know, we can describe the kinds of effects that emerge with the psychedelics. But, you know, more than that, in in meditation, in prayer practice, there really is, there arises a sense of the ineffable, and there are a lot of things tied to that, but meaning is integrally involved in that, and that frankly just became so compelling to me. As a matter of fact, it kind of dwarfed my interest in drug abuse pharmacology to the point that I actually considered at one point dropping out of the scientific academy and going off to India to an ashram to do much more intensive meditation practice. So,
were there existential reasons for that, or was it merely a matter of where your curiosity took you? You had a very well established and productive, and I would presume meaningful and engaging career. I don't know how you found the teaching aspect of that. Was that rewarding to you as well, or were you more a pure researcher?
A pure researcher.
Okay. But
yeah.
You had a fully functioning professional life at that point, but something gripped you. And were there personal reasons for that, or do you think it was more a manifestation of curiosity?
I think it was raw curiosity, but once one enters into that relationship of investigating this mystery of what it is that we're doing here, right? It's kind of the core existential mystery of being that I think comes up in this. This is my framing now. At the time, I didn't know how to even contextualize this. I knew it was something that emerged from meditation. I thought it had something to do with what religious teachings were about. I just had no context for putting that together. But it was super compelling, and it seems incredibly important. And I would say, if anything, it's at least that interest and the importance in it hasn't faded one bit for me.
So why did you decide then, instead of abandoning what you'd already created and journeying, let's say, to India for the second half of your life? That's how the Jungians would think about it, I suppose, is the spiritual part of your life. Why did you decide to continue walking down the scientific pathway, and what do you think of that decision?
Well, I think it's one of the best decisions I could have possibly made. Let's see. It was what I knew. It was all the tools I had. I was in a unique position. I started reading the literature on psychedelics and going, this is interesting, and I wonder if this is true. And frankly, I went into that first study, and this may have made me an acceptable person to take this on. I went into that first study with a deep sense of skepticism. I was very happy with what I was learning about the nature of these experiences from meditation. I was kind of put off by what struck me as excessive enthusiasm among those people who have continued to be engaged in psychedelics.
Well, enthusiasm means to be filled with God's Spirit, so it's exactly the right word for people who've been addled by psilocybin, let's say, or hypothetically addled by it. Excessive enthusiasm, and of course that is a danger. It's not like there's any shortage of religious manias. That can manifest itself as part of manic depressive disorder, and you see religious experience of a sort often in schizophrenic delusions as well. So it's not like there's no danger there. There's plenty of danger.
I agree, and there still is.
And the first study was which one was that?
The first study was looking at a high dose of psilocybin and comparing it to a fairly high dose of methylphenidate or Ritalin under very deeply blinded conditions.
So it's a good study because you used an active placebo, so to speak. Did you have a placebo in there as well, or was it methylphenidate versus psilocybin?
It was just straight up comparing methylphenidate and psilocybin, but under deeply blinded conditions where people knew that in the course of 2 or 3 sessions, they would have at least one session in which they would get a dose of psilocybin. But they were also told that they could get, I think it was 13 other psychoactive compounds. We recruited in only people who had 0 prior experience with psychedelics. So because allegedly the profile of subjective effects are so unique that people could unblind themselves. By taking in naive people, we also eliminated a potential recruitment bias of people who were had good experiences. So we could actually.
How did you convince the ethics committees that it would?
If you're struggling to keep your blood sugar in check or suffer from type 2 diabetes or prediabetes, then you must watch this urgent video. For just 5 minutes of your time, you'll find out how to get rid of type 2 diabetes for good. All it takes is just 10 seconds of your time every morning. You can do this morning ritual from the comfort of your own home, and it's so simple and effective that you'll be ditching your insulin in no time. According to scientists, type 2 diabetes has nothing to do with old age, genetics, or what you eat. In fact, it's caused by something so seemingly innocent that doctors
insulin. Look,
it was
the only reason I'd be ditching my insulin is only because I haven't been able to find a physician who will work with me regularly on diabetic issue. When I was initially given the insulin from a nurse at like French hospital, and I would feel like they would be the ones who would continue well, anyway, I don't want to get on here parading about diabetes, but that guy had some ideas on how to reverse it. And ideas here: drink lots of water and exercise. There you go. Back to Jordan Peterson.
Acceptable to first of all to do this at all, and also the administrators at your university, and second that it was acceptable to use naive participants. Why did they? And do you think that in today's climate, do you think that that study would now be possible? Let's say if you hadn't laid the groundwork for it.
You know, I think partly it was good luck, and partly it actually speaks very well of Johns Hopkins and their ethic review procedures. So when I assembled that protocol with some help from the Council on Spiritual Practices and counseling from Bob Jesse, when I assembled that protocol, I actually thought that there's probably less than a 50% chance it would even be approvable because of these, ethical committees. It has to go through, not only the Hopkins Ethical Committee, but FDA. And FDA hadn't approved a study giving a high dose of a psychedelic to a psychedelic naive individual for, I don't know, 25 plus years, decades. And so it was no means clear that it would even go, but it was so interesting to me. And as I said, I was losing comparative interest in the other things that I was doing, that I thought, well, why not? The ethical scrutiny that got was unlike, as you might imagine, unlike any previous protocol or even any protocol since. It went through many levels of scrutiny within my institution, Johns Hopkins, including being looked at by the dean and the managing attorney's office and whatever. And I have to say, I'm very proud of Johns Hopkins as an institution.
It's stunning that they did it. I can't believe that they did it. I can't. What arguments did you marshal to put up against? Because it's so easy for a committee to, if they see risk, just to say no, because no is simple. The problem goes away, and no one's accountable for it. Yes is complicated. And so, how did you convince them this was a worthwhile endeavor, especially given your own skepticism at that point?
Well, it really came down to science and risk-benefit ratio. I think the big risk that most institutions would have caved in on is a political risk, a reputational risk. You know what? You know, to be associated with psychedelics. Look, that got
well, look
Harvard
what Leary did for Harvard.
Yeah, exactly. But the committee at Hopkins that looked at this really put the politics to one side and weighed the risk-benefit ratio to the volunteers.
What did they see as the benefit?
Oh, in terms of just understanding the nature, let's see, we put it forward as a comparative pharmacology study.
Okay.
And we had done a lot of work with comparative pharmacology. And in fact, I had a grant from the National Institute on Drug Abuse to compare one of my specialties at the time was sedative hypnotics. And I had a grant that had proposed to compare ketamine, which is an NMDA dissociative anesthetic, with some other compounds. And so I modified it to say, well, we were going to look at ketamine, but I think we'll look at psilocybin. And instead of comparing it to a classic
Okay, so there was some incrementalism there, because ketamine's already like radically psychoactive, although perhaps not so much as a pure psychedelic, let's say. So there was some incrementalism, and you'd already got support from granting agencies, and you had all your credibility behind you.
Yeah, and so what we could argue is we're looking at relative abuse potential here. Now the study, as it's published, doesn't read out as that, but that was really how it was designed as a classic comparative pharmacology study in which we could compare the effects of psilocybin to methylphenidate in healthy volunteers. We had, we could look at things
right,
like
and so that's I can see that would be, you could make a mount of pretty straightforward, valid scientific argument for that. You have methylphenidate, which is a standard psychomotor stimulant, basically dopaminergically mediated, something like cocaine, and then you have this strange psychedelic, and the reason they're addictive is not, or if they are, and of course there's tremendous discussion about that, but they don't fit neatly into the category of other abusable drugs, and so that is an issue that's worthy. It's very hard to get animals to voluntarily take psychedelics at least regularly, whereas you can do it with cocaine with no problem. So I can see that you can make a basic science argument right there, and you said also abuse potential. Okay, fair enough. I'm still stunned that they managed it, but it's so interesting to see how much work and preparation and care at all sorts of levels had to go into that before it was made possible. And it's also even possible that maybe that caution was warranted, because one of the things that really strikes me about your research program is that it hasn't got out of hand, right? I mean, and that's what happened in Harvard in the early 60s when Leary started playing around, let's say, with LSD, which you don't play around with. You've been able to really keep this within a tightly bound scientific box while still investigating and popularizing the reality of the mystical experience for the participants. Okay, so you started the study, you had naive people. What happened?
Well, what happened is the story that actually changed my career direction, because the results, I was interested in spiritual experience. I put in questionnaires into this study that had been used to measure naturally occurring mystical experiences. And Ralph Hood, who may have been a participant in the meeting that we went to.
I think we met Ralph there, yep.
Yeah, had a nice questionnaire. But I wasn't sure what to expect and whether the effects would live up to what struck me as exaggerated claims by the psychedelic and enthusiast populations. But indeed, what happened was under these blinded conditions, and both the guides were blinded and the volunteers to what drugs were administered, other than on some session that get a dose of psilocybin. And what emerged is, number one, that immediately during these sessions that are done after careful preparation, so they're really curated experiences in which we meet with volunteers for 8 preparation hours prior to the session. And then they come in, they take a capsule. We ask them to lay on a couch for the duration of the session, which can be up to 8 hours, 6 to 8 hours. We encourage them to use blindfolds so that their visual system is cut off. We have them use earphones through which they listen to a program of music, and so it's an introvertive kind of.
Do they select the
experience.
music, or do you select it?
We select it.
What were your guidelines for selecting the music?
Well, our main guide, who played a very important role in our initial study, was Bill Richards, and he had actually done psychedelic work at Maryland Research Center back in the 1970s. And so he had a strong bias toward Western classical music. And so our initial playlist was very strongly influenced in that direction. Since that time...
Any particular composers? Like, was it heavy on Bach, for example?
Well, not particularly heavy, but it covered a range of classical composers.
Actually, I'm focusing on that because, I mean, music and dancing are components of psychedelic experiences that stretch back tens of thousands of years. And so the fact that it's easy to skip over these details in some sense. You had people lay down, their eyes were closed. Okay, so they're...
Attention speakers, coaches, authors, and consultants. Do you know how powerful podcasting can be to grow and scale your already successful brand or business? If not, stay tuned, because this may be one of the most eye-opening videos you ever watch. Look, if you've ever considered starting a profitable podcast, but you feel lost and just not sure where to start, or maybe
they're not having a sociological experience of psilocybin. They're having an interior experience, and then you use music, and God only knows what music does in the final analysis. But and it's certainly the case that there isn't a tremendous amount of space between classical music and religious music, and so there's also sorts of things that you've done that are implicit in the experiment that are integral in some indeterminate sense to the outcome. Now, these preparation sessions, 8 hours. Okay, what are you doing with people during those 8 hours, and why?
Let's see. The preparation is really developing rapport and trust with them. These experiences can be hugely disorienting, and fear, anxiety can arise at very strong magnitude. It's very important that people feel safe and cared for. So I think that we're trying to create a containment around these experiences. They have to trust sometimes they're called guides or sitters. They really have to implicitly trust these people to take care of them.
So how important do you think, because when you say they have to feel safe, but I would think that it's more that they have to be safe. And you know what I mean? That if this is why psychological research in particular is so likely to go astray, because it's really depends on integrity in ways that are not easily measurable or describable in research papers. So, I would think, and please correct me if I'm wrong, that if you didn't have exactly the right sort of people, qualified, intelligent, insightful, competent, caring, awake, all of that, and dedicated to actually taking care of the research subjects, Like, none of this can be a show for that to work right. This can go wrong very badly. It didn't go wrong. So to what degree, how did you select the people who were going to serve as the protectors / guides, and what were you thinking about when you did that?
So that initial study, Bill Richards, who I already mentioned, came in. So Bill came in as someone who was already a strong believer in the power of these kinds of compounds. So we actually, he was a perfect person to bring into in that role.
And was he associated with the Council of Spiritual Practice? Was he a Bob Jesse contact?
He was,
yeah,
actually.
Okay.
Bob
So
Jesse,
you drew from that domain of expertise already.
Yeah, and he's a psychologist in the Baltimore area, and now he may very well be among the absolutely most experienced psychedelic therapists in the world. So he already came in with substantial experience. He was our primary guide throughout that first study, and he trained an assistant guide who's with us still, Mary Casamano, and it was the pair of them that in that very first study that provided that rapport, trust, and support before, during, and after, and the aftercare is also important. But that relationship is critical, and you're right. People, they have to feel safe, and they have to be safe, and that's the value of doing this under within the institutional structure of something like Hopkins, because people know that what we're doing is giving them a compound that we know to be psilocybin, in this case synthesized psilocybin in capsules, and it's done under medical supervision. And if anything went amiss medically, we're capable of intervening, and medical intervention is very rare. I mean, these drugs turn out to be remarkably safe. But these kinds of sessions certainly can go off the rails, and so that's the nature of that preparation and caring and being with them in the session. We've probably been possibly more conservative than we need to. Our sessions even today involve 2 sitters or guides there throughout the whole duration of the 6 or 8 hours. So people are tucked into their couch. They're asked to go inward. We're not guiding the session per se. We're asking them to pay attention to their own experience as it unfolds. We'll check in with them occasionally.
What about mindset? Like, what do you tell the people about how to prepare psychologically for the experience? How are they informed? What do you want? How do you want them to react?
Let's see. We want them to go in and be deeply curious about what they have to learn.
Okay. So you want them to be open and let it go and let it happen. And you say, we'll take care of you, but you can let it happen.
Yeah, let it go, be open, trust, and we prepare them to not necessarily expect, but not rule out the possibility that what may emerge during the session is something that they'll find absolutely terrifying or anxiety producing.
Okay, so they know that.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
And so I almost
how often do people encounter? The experiences are exceptionally profound and range across the full range of emotional significance. In fact, past the normal ranges of emotional significance. So, how frequently in the experience is the negative end of the human experience magnified?
Actually, quite frequently. So in our first study, about 30% of volunteers would have said, actually rated it at the end of the study, that sometime during the experience they had an experience of fear of or anxiety that they would rated extreme. Now, very often those are short-lived experiences, and to the extent that they drag out over long periods of the session, the outcomes are going to generally be less favorable. But I think it's actually a very sobering statistic that in spite of all the selection we do, I mean, we've already screened out people for whom we don't think we can develop rapport and trust. We've screened out individuals with borderline personality disorder, for instance. And so we've already selected a group of people who are open and curious. We're giving them all this time and attention, yet about 30% will experience some significant anxiety during those sessions. What's important is that it's very, very rare for anyone who has a session of, under these kinds of conditions to report after the session that they feel as though their life satisfaction, has been decreased. Most people, even if they have a difficult experience, will interpret that experience in a context of meaningfulness. And in some cases, it's actually through the doorway of the most difficult portions of the experience that the greatest learning comes up.
So let's dive into that a little bit. I mean, I know it appears as though historically, when people were preparing for experiences of this sort, that they would often undergo a process of ritual purification. And I'm going to just abandon the ritual part of that and assume that what they were doing was attempting some moral purification, that they were settling their accounts, that they were trying to ensure that they didn't walk into the experience with excessive karmic baggage that they could conceivably shed, that they were very careful to prepare themselves so that their consciences weren't weighing on them any more heavily than they needed to. And when people undergo these negative experiences, but still emerge, let's say, with the judgment that was worthwhile, what's the essential nature of the negative experience?
Hi, my name is Sori Kim, and I am an illustrator.
Experience. I mean, it's not contentless terror. It's not that unformed. It's more personal.
The interesting piece of it, Jordan, is it can take many, many different forms. One example that we give is because psilocybin very often has a lot of visualizations attached to it, either imagery and sometimes realistic imagery or patterns or whatever. And so we'll say, well, for instance, if, and this can happen, if during the session a demonic figure, comes up and starts to approach you, your job is to be interested and curious about it, to recognize that this is a display of consciousness. We'll often say there's nothing in consciousness per se that can hurt you. And what we want you to be is interested in this. And so instead of reifying an image in your mind, so take the demon, instead of reifying it, and if you do, you'll either choose to run from it, and then you'll spend the entire session running from this demon that's going to annihilate you until you're exhausted and the psilocybin's gone. Or alternatively, you may choose to fight it, but by fighting it, you've also reified it. And what we really want you to do is be really interested in it and be curious about it. And so it's terrifying. It's a construct created by you, for you, probably to terrify you, and be interested in it and curious about it. And it's through that recognition, although the hair on the back of your head may be standing on end, we would much rather have you approach it and in effect ask it what it's doing there. What am I to learn from this? And what the guarantee is that whatever the nature of that is, and it can take any number of forms, and it's not necessarily a monster or just visual, but whatever it is not going to be static. I mean, unless you reify it, unless you make it static. If you actually investigate it, it's going to start changing. And then initially, it actually might become more terrifying, but it can't and won't continue to do that. It's going to dissolve, and it may dissolve into something disgusting or beautiful or transcendent or silly, but it's going to change. And your job is just to stay with the experience and recognize that you're empowered in a way to approach whatever it is that emerges in consciousness. And my own sense, I'd be very curious about how you interpret this from a clinical psychological point of view. But my sense of that is that that's a hugely empowering experience for people to have, that they have literally faced the dragon. They have faced the greatest terror, whatever form it's taken, and they've come out recognizing that they're safe, they're empowered, and that can be a life-changing experience in and of itself. Because after you really have been there with the demon, the worst demon of your dreams, and faced it down and looked it in its eyes and realized it's actually nothing other than an object of consciousness, nothing other than yourself, then what is it in life that can put up an obstacle with that much fear for you?
It's very much like a classic initiation ceremony. I mean, one thing that clinicians have agreed upon, regardless of their school of thought, let's say, is that voluntary exposure to obstacles in your path that are threatening or disgusting is almost inevitably curative. And it seems that the rule is that which you approach voluntarily shrinks as you approach it, and you grow. And if you run, the reverse happens. And you can play that out very straightforwardly if you're a behaviorist, because if someone's afraid of an elevator, then you have them stand 10 feet from the elevator, and then 9 feet, and then 8 feet. And not only do they learn that, what they learn is that they can withstand the fear. That's what generalizes. And you don't get symptom substitution the way the psychoanalysts thought, because you're probably not counter-conditioning the fear. What you're doing is showing the person that there's more to them than they thought. And there isn't anything more salutary than that. And that's precisely why you're encouraged, let's say, in mythological stories, to control the dragon and get the gold. That's the basic story, and it's very interesting how that becomes portrayed in a psychedelic experience. I mean, what do you make? Okay, look, there's two directions there. I'd like to continue the discussion of the study. Okay, so what happened to you as a consequence of running this study, and how did that influence what you did? And then what happened culturally as a consequence of reporting this study?
So I think the most interesting and unexpected finding for me was I was deeply interested in the nature of that initial experience. But the most interesting thing to me occurred when people returned 2 months later. So this first study, we were giving sessions at 2-month intervals. So people would come in, they would have their session, the guides would meet with them intermittently beforehand. And then they would come back for the second session. They'd sit down in my office, and this is just a vivid memory. It was one of the very first volunteers, and I asked them, well, so what do you think of the first session? I'm just curious as to what you're thinking. And the person said, I think about that every day. That's among the most important experiences of my whole life. And I thought, what? I mean, now at this point in my career, I've given dozens and dozens of different psychoactive drugs to people, both healthy volunteers and drug abusers, at high doses.
Well, how high was the dose? Typically among street users, 2 grams is a moderate dose for psilocybin of the actual mushroom. 4 grams, I think 5 grams is what Terence McKenna called the heroic dose, isn't it? What kind of dose were you giving?
This is equivalent to a 5-gram dose.
Oh, so this was not a trivial pharmacological experience.
This is
the top. That's in the dose
right at the
where
top.
It's not a beginner's experience in some sense. It's the
Absolutely not.
thing.
Yeah.
Okay. How did you settle on the dose?
Well, we wanted to provide a strong test of what it was that psilocybin could do. That is the same dose, although we did it on a weight basis, but it's the same dose that Walter Pankey gave in the famous Good Friday experiment. And given that this is Good Friday, we can reference that. That was the study done in Harvard, back in the very early 60s. But that, there were some limitations to that study, but in effect, many of the things that we showed were consistent with what they had ended up reporting. But we knew from the literature that psilocybin at that dose had been given safely in various studies. So we thought that there wasn't any great value in studying a range of doses, nor could we afford to do so, because this study was supported partly through a pre-existing grant, but also significantly through philanthropic support.
Okay, so people came back 2 months later, and they...
Everybody wants something different. All I want is to show you how to do this. Okay, I'm inviting you to my workshop, the 10X workshop. You can come for free, literally. Like, there's no excuses unless you just don't want to be successful. Okay, if that's your go-to excuse, I don't want to be successful, then you won't make the time because it doesn't cost any money. I can't make your schedule, I can't make your time, and I can't make your commitments. I can put the workshop on and invite you to come. Elena will be there, I'll be there. My goal is to show you how you can build $1 million business as fast as freaking humanly possible. I did a $5.5 million business in 90 days during COVID with cameras around me, and trust me, the cameras did not help. The cameras hurt me because I could not be found out. I had to shave my head. Donovan, how you doing? I had to shave my head. I could not use my credit cards. Couldn't use my cash. Couldn't use my name. Couldn't call my friends. Couldn't even use the damn phone I'm putting this on the video with. Because my phone's full of a bunch of contacts. So they took my phone, took my computer, took my credit cards. I got a credit card here somewhere. I had to get new clothes, okay? No, that's a hotel room. Didn't have a place to live. I just stayed at the Post Oak right here in Sugar Land, or in Houston. I had to live in an RV that I had to hustle from a guy. So I had no food, no water, no housing, no money, no credit. And during COVID, I still built a $5.5 million business. I want to show you how to do it for free. There's no hooks, there's no catches, there's nothing. I just want you to come, man. I want to show you guys how to do it yourself. You're a man or woman, young or old, okay?
As long as you're done with the excuses and you got the heart of a lion, like you got the same kind of commitment and compassion that I have to take care of my family and to feel good about myself and what I'm doing. This isn't about watches and planes and stuff. It's about people you love. It's about taking care of people you love and care for. It's about being a good example to your kids and your parents. It's about you knowing you can do more. It's not about the money. Hey, maybe you make $5 million in 90 days. Maybe you do. Maybe you're one of those people that's going to build a $10 million business in 90 days. Maybe you don't do anything with it. Maybe you just get excited, come up with a plan, and you fall flat on your face. Or maybe you don't pull it off in 90 days. It takes you 9 months. What's the downside here? Come learn something. I'm going to share with you step by step what I would do again if I was at zero and wanted to build $1 million business, $5 million business, $10 million business. So who's this for? Entrepreneurs, business owners, managers, startups, people that are sick and tired of being sick and tired, people that are just getting by, people that are doing great but know they can do better. Don't miss this. Take advantage of it, man. It's a steal. It's a steal. Okay. It's a steal. The fact that I'm inviting you to come to this. If I charge you $10,000 to come to this and you figured it out, it'd be worth $10 million. It'd be worth $5 million if you just did what I did. Okay. In this case, it doesn't cost you anything. So come to it, join it. You got to come. I can't do that part for you. You got to do that part. Okay. Click the link, grab it. I'm going to do this one time and one time only. And I want to see who shows up. I hope you do.
Just write it down. You can have all of the figures.
I'm going to make a bold statement and say that doing a TEDx talk is going to be the most transformative and uplifting experience of your life and your business. This is Kevin before his TEDx talk. When I met him, he was 19 years old and just dropped out of high school, was battling mental health issues, but really hoped to one day write a book, and was an aspiring speaker. After helping land his TEDx talk, he has now landed over 300 paid speaking engagements. He's landed a 6-figure book deal with the world's largest publisher. He's helped raise millions of dollars for mental health charities, and most importantly, he's living his purpose full time. And this is Cynthia. Before she did her TEDx talk, when we got connected, she was a nurse practitioner and a health coach, just trying to build some authority and credibility in her space, but she couldn't really break through to the next level in her business. After her TEDx talk, her client waiting list went to a year long because so many people were trying to work with her. Her social media exploded. She landed a 6-figure speaking contract globally. She landed a book deal, and most importantly, she was able to impact exponentially more people than she was able to impact before. I could keep going, but the point is, a TEDx talk has the ability to transform your life, your business, and your impact. Now, I don't work for TED or TEDx. I'm not sponsored or affiliated or endorsed by them. I simply know this because I've done 4 TEDx talks myself, and those TEDx talks have led to raising over $5 million to build schools, libraries, and water projects all over the world. And most importantly, we've helped hundreds of other people that were at one time sitting in exactly your shoes, sitting in your chair, and we help them get onto that stage and reach millions and millions and millions of people. So you might be wondering, yeah, I'd like to do a TEDx talk, and I have no idea where to start. Well, I put together a free training for you. We're going to teach you 3 things that are going to help you land a TEDx talk fast. Number 1, I'm going to teach you exactly what TEDx organizers are looking for, what gets people rejected, and what gets people selected. Number 2, I'm going to talk about how to write a talk that goes viral once it goes online. It spreads like wildfire and actually reaches the millions of people that you're here to reach. And finally, I'm going to show you an exact methodology that you can start using today to start landing your TEDx talk. Now, I don't have any more time in this video, so click the link below, join me in the free training, and get that message out of your head, out of your heart, and into the world where it belongs.
They said this, and you listened, which is also extremely interesting because it did violate some of your presuppositions, even though you were curious about this.
Yeah, and so it just was hugely unprecedented in my experience. And someone would say, that experience I had 2 months ago, I think about every day, and it's among the most important experiences of my life. And, you know, my first thought was, what kind of life experiences do these people have? This seems absurd to me. And when you quiz them about it, they would say, well, when my first child was born, my whole life changed. I'll never forget that. When my father died, that's a huge life changer. It's kind of like that, and so they're describing it in a metric, across their life experience that actually makes a whole lot of intuitive sense.
You're in major existential episodes.
Yeah, but it's so different than any other psychoactive drug I had ever looked at. So I was accustomed to measuring acute effects and describing those acute effects. And so, if you give cocaine or an opiate or a dissociative anesthetic, ask someone a week later, or much less, a couple months later, well, what was that like? They'll tell you, but they're drawing on memory. Oh yeah, we got drunk and we had a good time and we laughed a lot. But if you said, well, is that important to you? It wouldn't be unless they learn not to drink that much. But this has embedded existential, personal meaning of kind of the deepest order. And so, after those interviews, we put together another set of questionnaires that we have used since then. And that's actually rating these experiences with respect to your entire life experiences. And so, just replicate across now a variety of studies. We can show that it's usually 80 to 90% of people rate these experiences in the top 5 of their life. In that first study, I think 30% rated it as the single most spiritually significant experience of their entire life. So it's of that order of magnitude.
Right. So now you went in there with this some skepticism, but you'd also been gripped already at that point by some intuition that there was something in that domain of experience that was crucially important. And so now people came back and said, well, look, I've experienced that, and it had a huge impact on me. And so what happens next in your reasoning? Where do you take that? You develop this new questionnaire. What's the next study and why?
Well, yeah, so it interfaced with my own experience because, I've been involved with meditation. I appreciated aspects of the primary mystical experience, and we can talk about that. Those are the qualities of the acute experience that seem to predict these longer-term attributions of being spiritual significance.
Right, so were there people who took the psilocybin that didn't have the mystical experience and that didn't report the long-term effects? Or was everyone who was affected, affected by the psilocybin regardless of
there's some variation. Some people will not have classic mystical experiences, and some people won't have classic mystical experiences yet will describe them as meaningful. But overall, those people who have these experiences that we describe as classic mystical experiences are the ones that will report enduring positive changes. And there's a good correlation
and what kind
there.
of changes are they reporting? Sorry, I also interrupted one of your points there.
Yeah. Let's see. So they're reporting, in the most general terms, positive changes in attitudes about themselves, about life, their emotions, behavioral changes, spirituality are all changed in ways that are felt to be deeply meaningful and significant.
Right, so things are better. So they report that their lives are better, but it's not hedonic better, like cocaine better. It's not psychomotor stimulant better. It's philosophical better. And I mean, that's why I think your findings on this increase in trait openness are so absolutely, well, they're unbelievable, first of all. They're so powerful. It's just, and I have no idea in the final analysis what to make of them. But it is really something, stop me if I'm wrong, but it's like a philosophical deepening. And it is better conceptualized as an expansion of the experience of significant meaning rather than a generalized rise in positive emotion. You didn't get an increase in extroversion, which is the positive emotion dimension. You got an experience in openness, which is the creativity dimension. And it's also associated with revelatory thought, right? Because openness looks like the trait that we would identify as creativity. And creative people are generative in their ideas, right? They're intuitive. They have these insight experiences that you're also interested in. They're able to make associations between distant thoughts and observe patterns. And if you're high in openness, you're also interested in ideas. You tend to be philosophical in your outlook. You have a strong affinity for fiction and narrative. All of that clumps together. And your research, maybe we can go there next, is you showed that after a single dose mystical experience on psilocybin, people move the equivalent of from the 50th percentile to the 85th percentile in trait openness, one standard deviation. And so that was permanent. Okay, so talk about that and what the hell happened and what do you think's happening neurologically?
Yeah, let me back up to the acute experience and describe components of that, because that explains then, I think, how people are looking back at these experiences. So the key features of this so-called primary mystical experience, and we now have developed a very good questionnaire that's psychometrically solid and can measure this. The key features of this are this sense of unity, this sense of the interconnectedness of all people and all things, and that can be experienced both introvertedly, and that is that everything is within, or it can be experienced extrovertedly. And the whole, the literature on mystical experiences outside of drugs, was laid out and set forth this kind of template. So there's a sense of the interconnectedness of all people, all things, the unity.
Yeah, the meaningful interconnectedness, right? That somehow that's all connected, not just connected, but also that the entire pattern of connection has some transcendent or ultimate significance that's hidden from us.
Yeah, let me go into the other qualities. So it's that unity that's accompanied by a sense of sacredness or reverence. So there's something about this experience that's felt to be deeply precious, if you don't want to use a word that's tinged with spiritual implications. But there's something deeply precious about it. And then there's the noetic sense. Not only is it precious, it's absolutely true. And for most people, they will endorse it's more real than everyday waking consciousness. It's more real than real. And then there are sub-factors to the mystical experience, and that's positive mood, transcendence of time and space, and ineffability. One of the first things that people say in coming out of these experiences, when I walk into the session room and ask them, well, tell me about your experience, they'll kind of look down and maybe smile or look baffled, and they say, I can't even put this into words. And I'm thinking, okay, well, that's one of the 6 criteria here. So what I think is that this sense of unity, the fact that there's some sense that we're all in this together, this is all interconnected. There's a wholeness there. there that's precious and it's absolutely true. And with that, it may be that noetic quality that it's absolutely true might account for why these experiences then are sustained. They have enduring effects because people believe that there's some fundamental truth value in what they have learned. It's not like getting drunk and saying, yeah, I had a great time, but you don't learn anything, important, on how to conduct your life going forward, other than maybe not drink so much. But this is something at a very personal level, and then I think that explains a lot of how it is that people then come to change. So very often, there's a level of meaning making. I mean, this is right down your alley, Jordan. There's a level of meaning making that comes out of these experiences that end up rewriting the personal narrative that the person has about themselves and about their place in the world, and that accounts for these enduring changes and the fact that people then become behaviorally much more flexible. Because if that narrative structure is changed, then the analogy I think of is you're rewriting the underlying operating system. And with that, everything can change. People can change their life courses in ways that they were unimaginable.
Well, okay,
before.
so let me make a couple of comments about that. You tell me what you think about this. Okay, so when I've looked at, I think of the operating system as it has a narrative structure fundamentally. And the reason for that is that we have to know how to behave, and narratives are about behavior. And narratives address the question of how we should behave. There's a perceptual element too, because you have to perceive in order to act. And so your perceptions are very tightly linked to your behavioral aims. And that's quite clear from the hardcore psychological literature. Okay, so my sense of the deep narrative, because I think that the world is best construed, and I do mean best construed, as a place of order and chaos, and that can be technically described, the distinction between those two, and that there's a battle between good and evil going on against that background. Now, I want to talk about the good and evil background a bit because it pertains to this rewriting of the narrative. So I look at stories like the story of Cain and Abel, which is a very ancient story, and it's clearly a story of good against evil. And it's a foundational story because it's really, in the Western culture, in the narrative tradition, it's the story of the first two genuine human beings, because Adam and Eve are made by God, but Cain and Abel are born. They're the first actual people. And one of them is a murderous, genocidal psychopath, and the other is a hero. And so you see that dichotomy there instantly. And so Cain is the adversary, the dark narrative, the dark force, let's say. And why? Well, what happens to Cain is that he struggles and sacrifices like we all do. We make our sacrifices in the present, and we assume that by doing so, the benevolence of the world will manifest it to us. That's why we're willing to forego gratification and to work. That's all sacrifice. And so Cain sacrifices, but God rejects his sacrifice. And the story is brilliantly ambivalent about why. And the reason that's a brilliant ambivalence is because you can work diligently and make the proper sacrifices as far as you're concerned and yet fail, which means that all that work, all that foregone gratification, that pact with God, what is it that God has with the Israelites? There's a name for that. Covenant. The implicit covenant has been broken. And Cain responds to that with tremendous anger, right? He raises his fist against the sky and shakes it and says, this should not be. And then he takes revenge. He says, I will destroy what is most valuable to you. And so he goes after Abel, who is an ideal person, whose sacrifices are welcomed by God, and he kills him. And then all hell breaks loose in the aftermath of that in Cain's relatives. And like the more I delved into that story, the more it shocked me. I couldn't believe that much information could be packed into what's essentially 12 lines. Okay, so now imagine that in each of our souls, we have this competing tendency. You know, we see the suffering and the horror of our lives, the vulnerability and the mortality of everything that we love and cherish, and our failure. And that turns us against being. You talked about being at the beginning of this. That turns us against being. And then there's the other part of us that maintains faith and that strives forward. But each of us is an intermingling of those. And so the rewrite seems to me to be something like the revelation that the positive end of that set of propositions is actually true, that things are interconnected, that things are fundamentally good, that love and truth can actually prevail. And that gives some experiential weight that can be used as a counterposition against that destructive cynicism. And the psychedelic, the mystical experience seems to allow for that transformation. Does that seem, what do you think of that?
Yeah, that sounds right. I mean, there's something hugely curious about the nature of these experiences, because they appear to be strongly biased toward this benevolent sense of wonder.
Yeah, and that's associated with that certainty of truth, which is not what you'd expect, right? Because it's not that easy to make a powerful, credible case for benevolence and truth. We're not even wired that way because we overestimate, like we over-experience the magnitude of negative experiences. We're more sensitive to them. So it's surprising that would emerge. It's unlikely.
But isn't it interesting? I mean, the fact is, that these experiences that occur with the psychedelics are very much part of naturally occurring experiences of this type. So there can be conversion experiences or religious experiences that come out in, under various conditions, either spontaneously or in prayer practice, in breath work. So, I mean, to me, I conclude that we're wired to have these kinds of experiences.
So that in itself is an absolutely radical claim. I mean, I've gone after some of the Darwinians the atheistic Darwinians that I've talked to for failing to take into account what I regard as the preponderance of scientific evidence indicating that the religious instinct is real and that it's biologically grounded. It's like, okay, it's real, it's biologically grounded. What do you have to say about that from an evolutionary perspective then? Is that a spandrel? It's like, no, because it looks like it's central to the development of human culture itself. Not only is it not a spandrel, it's like the opposite of a spandrel. And so what are we supposed to conclude if we conclude that the religious instinct has actually evolved? It's deeply biological, and it speaks of like a benevolent and truth-oriented teleological reality. That is not the way our culture is constructed.
Well, this was the question I was kind of posed to you. What's going on here?
Well, that's exactly what we're trying to figure out, isn't it? Just what the hell is going on here?
Yeah, what the hell's going on? And just to reflect it back on, was it a good decision to follow this? I mean, what's more important than this, Jordan? What's more important than finding out what's going on here?
Well, I actually can't believe how important this is. I mean, I've been studying the psychedelic literature for 20 years and in as deep a manner as I can possibly manage. And every time I think I have some grasp on how important it is, I learn something else and I think, oh, it's way more important than I thought it was. It's of crucial significance. It's literally of central significance. It's literally of central significance. And so now it needs to, and partly why I was so interested in talking to you is I'm trying to figure out, it's like, okay, well, what happens if we take this seriously? Like if we start to actually take this seriously with dead
Protecting your quarterback is like protecting your house.
The earlier you detect the threat, the better. So help protect your home with First Alert smoke detectors.
Let's tackle home together.
Seriousness. What's the consequence of that? And so, all right. So let's look at the fear of death. That's the place I want to go next. And there's a couple of things I'm interested in about that. The first is that so you have this study showing that cancer sufferers take psilocybin and they show a marked reduction in the fear of death. And that gets stranger the more deeply you investigate it. And there's these ancient Eleusinian mysteries that seem to be associated with something like the experience of a voyage to the land of the dead, an encounter with ancestral spirits, a religious transformation, and then the eradication, or at least the diminution of the fear of death. But all of that mythological baggage, so to speak, went along with the experience. So there's a journey of some sort to a place of some sort that seems to have commonality across different individuals, strangely enough, that results in this pronounced transformation of the existential consideration of mortality itself. So it's, again, of sufficient significance so that there's no end to how deeply you can investigate it. So tell me about that experiment and what you saw happening and what you've made of it.
So these were cancer patients who met diagnostic criteria for significant anxiety or depression secondary to their cancer diagnosis. And, as you well know and can appreciate, when someone's facing a life-threatening illness, that can be hugely disruptive to them. So the study was a simple study. It was blinded and done very rigorously, but people ended up getting a high dose of psilocybin at some point. And after doing so, their depression and anxiety drops just precipitously. It remains completely low out to the 6-month point, and another group that ran a parallel kind of study did a follow-up 5 years, and they're still reporting those kinds of effects. So these are those kind of enduring changes. So, what's going on there? Well, it's a mixture. Part of it is a different attitude about death and dying, and we're actually analyzing data from a huge survey right now on changed attitudes about death and dying secondary to psychedelic exposure, and comparing that to the kinds of changes that people have that occur naturalistically, such as near-death experiences, where you get that same kind of shift. So that's certainly an element, but there's also related to that is this sense of benevolent unity, that there's something about this mystery that we find ourselves in.
So something cropped up. Let me tell you about it. So our life is dependent on death because our cells are constantly dying, and if death isn't regulated properly within us, we get cancer, for example. So the fact of our healthy existence is actually paradoxically dependent on death itself. The proper amount of death keeps us healthy. And it's so interesting because that's also true psychologically, is that you have to let old concepts die, and they don't like to die. It's a painful experience to have the old you die in the light of new experience. It's painful enough so that people will resist it. But there's this benevolent death that's a reparative mechanism. And when I've allowed my intuitions to extend themselves as far as possible, I think, well, that's true of being itself, is that in the manner that we can't comprehend, death plays a restorative role. It's something like the precursor to resurrection, and God only knows where that idea goes. But I believe that these mystical experiences provide a window into that there's this mechanism of death at work, but it's a reparative and creative mechanism, all things considered. It's building towards something that we have an intuition of and want to participate in, and are tortured by our conscience for not participating in. And a glimpse of that it at least shows you that there's more going on than you think, that there's more going on than you want. So much of hopelessness is a consequence of premature closure. I am certain this is hopeless and pointless. Well, that mystical experience can dispense with that certainty. I'm not so sure that I know what's going on. I'm not so inclined to not have doubt about my own skepticism. So, all right. So back to the study.
Let me just pick up on that, because one of the questions that I found myself asking people as they enrolled in the study is, what do you think happens when you die? And it's a very interesting question to ask people. And and there are those who say, it's computer, it's lights out, it's unplugged, that's it. After these kinds of experiences, there's a crack in that doorway. There's less certainty about that, and that is part of this. Part of the kinds of changes that come about with these experiences. There's a shift in worldview, a shift in a sense of the nature of consciousness, maybe having an eternal quality to it, and that can be tinged with spirituality if someone interprets it in a religious framework. There's something enduring about that. And so the certainty that everything ends at the moment of death it becomes into more significant question very often with these kinds of experiences. But I don't think it accounts for everything. And there are people who come out of these experiences still saying, well, I don't believe in in any kind of afterlife or anything existing, but there is a sense that they may have of the elegance and the beauty and the benevolence of the entire process that just makes them feel filled with gratitude for the opportunity to be a sentient being and have this experience. There's something celebratory about
gratitude?
that.
Why that emotion in particular? Did you focus on?
I think that's actually I think that's the core to what very often, well, at least what I believe comes out of these experiences. There's a sense of wonder that comes out of the mystery of what it is that we don't know. I mean, there is this hard problem of consciousness, but most people don't contemplate it very, very seriously. With a psychedelic, it's almost impossible not to be astonished by how much and humbled by how much you don't understand about the nature of your own mind and the nature of reality. And so we're confronted with this mystery of what is this about? How is it, that we're these highly evolved beings, that have developed the capacity to sense things, to walk, to talk. We've developed societies. We've developed, science as a methodology. We can communicate. And on top of all that, the astonishing fact is that we're aware that if we, and that wouldn't have to be the case, and that's the hard problem of consciousness. And
well, I think there's even a harder problem, which the mystical experiences seem to shed some light on, which is to what degree is being itself dependent on consciousness?
As a mom raising a teenager, I'm already concerned about my kid on the internet, and now Prop 27 would turn every cell phone into a gambling device, exposing millions of kids to online sports gambling. Please join moms across California. No on 27.
Because there is the problem of consciousness, but there's the problem of being. What does it mean that things are? Well, it seems to me, or at least you can make the case, that, well, things aren't unless they're experienced. Because what sort of being is there in the absence of any experience whatsoever? It's all there is all you can do is construct the hypothetical picture of what being would be like in the absence of consciousness as a conscious creature would formulate that. That's the best you can do. But that's still dependent on consciousness. And so there's a real mystery there, which is what, I don't think it's a mystery that's properly addressed by, I'm an evolutionary biologist for all intents and purposes in my orientation, but a reductive materialism doesn't address that problem, and there's many other problems it doesn't address as well, and it doesn't address them if you take them seriously. It's like there is some relationship between consciousness and being, and I don't see how that's not easily explained by making consciousness an epiphenomenon of matter. That just makes matter more mysterious as far as I'm concerned. It doesn't get rid of the problem.
But therein comes the gratitude, right? The very fact that we are gifted with this experience of experience.
Well, I ended my last book with a chapter, Be Grateful in Spite of Your Suffering. And that was the end of a 2-book cycle of thinking. And I put it at the end as the culmination, like what's a final moral rule? Well, that's it, because that's the antidote to Cain. And I take Cain's argument seriously. It's a serious argument. Are things so terrible that they shouldn't exist at all? Well, you can accrue a fair bit of evidence in favor of that hypothesis. It doesn't lead to the right place. It makes everything worse as far as I can tell. And I haven't encountered a situation personally where gratitude wasn't better than its alternative. And the alternative seems unbelievably destructive. Resentment, I think, is the opposite of gratitude. And resentment can be a salutary emotion in that if you notice its emergence in your life, it signifies something that you should pay attention to. But I have seen nothing about it that's positive as something to be cultivated. You certainly don't teach your children to be, if you sit down and have a discussion with your wife about what sort of children you want, you never say resentful. Everybody agrees that that's toxic beyond tolerability. And so we know there's something wrong with it. And it is I think it's extraordinarily interesting that you focus on that particular experience.
And I think
that's a humbling as well, that gratitude.
Oh, it's hugely humbling. The first experience, you're looking into the existential mystery, right, of being. And it's a mind-boggling proposition that initially is unfathomable, and then from that emerges this gratitude for that opportunity. And if we want to circle back to the cancer patients, it's that gratitude, for the opportunity to live, whether or not they believe that something occurs after death. There's a celebration of life and very often a joy. It's really quite remarkable to see how people who have been so transformed, how they interact with family members who are, turn out at that point to be more distraught than they are very often.
And so what sort of transformations do you see in their actions with their family members?
Oh, they're reassuring. I mean, they'll say, there's a realism to the seriousness of their condition. So, they'll say, this is very sad. I'm dying. I'm going to leave, but it's okay. It's okay. Everything is all right.
Yeah. So the transformation is so radical that not only do they suffer less with regards to their own mortality, but they're transformed sufficiently so that they can now attend to others, despite the fact that they are the people that have the fatal illness.
Yeah, they become the caretakers in the family unit, and it also has the potential for totally shifting end of life care, because if you're no longer grasping to every shred of every minute of life, there's a deep interest in connecting and staying connected, and so you're much less likely to elect to go in the hospital and under incredibly brutal conditions, to achieve those last days or weeks. So it the potential actually in terms of large kind of cultural change to change death and dying and how we handle that as a culture is very significant.
Why psilocybin? Why did you pick psilocybin?
A couple reasons. One, its duration of action is clinically manageable, so it's not too short. If you did intravenous DMT, that's a matter of 15 or 20 minutes, and this gives you a longer period of time to have an experience and then to reintegrate that experience. But it's not nearly as long as something like LSD, which is like a 12-hour time course, which is just taxing for everybody and pretty clinically unmanageable. There's a sense, but I don't think we have good data on this, that psilocybin can be gentler than LSD psychologically. I'm not positive about that. But the most important piece of it is that most people can't spell psilocybin, and it simply didn't have the cultural baggage that LSD did. And I think it turns out to be a really good pick for a model system. But there are literally thousands of other compounds that could be synthesized that are going to have a different influence on the nature of consciousness that should be and will be explored over time.
I've been reading this book recently, The Immortality Key by Brian Murarescu, and he's making a case that has been made by other people, although he makes it in a very interesting way and a very original way. It's reminiscent to me of John Allegro's work from the late 60s, which sort of got pilloried at the time because, well, that was just when LSD and all the psychedelics were being made illegal, and Allegro was sort of lumped in with the hippie types and ignored. I read The Sacred Mushroom and the Cross years ago, and I thought, he's a linguist, and he claims to have gathered an immense amount of linguistic data suggesting that early Christianity was a mushroom cult. And I couldn't assess his claims because I'm not a linguist, but it certainly looked to me at the time like it was an extraordinarily serious book. And I read it and I thought, I have no idea what to do with this information. I can't tell if it's credible or not. And if it is credible, well, then what? Like, what in the world are we supposed to do with this? And then Murarescu, he's making a strong case that the Eleusinian mysteries were, in which the Greek society that gave rise to the West, let's say, was deeply embedded within a psychedelic religious tradition that was actually an integral part of the culture, not some peripheral element, but a central element. That was also the case with the cult of Dionysius, the god of the wine, and that Christianity took many of the mysteries, including the sacrament, from the Dionysian cult. And so I think, and I certainly think, that the Book of Revelation bears all the hallmarks of a classic psychedelic experience. So then I'm thinking, well, what are you supposed to think about that exactly? I mean, I take the fact that our society is Judeo-Christian and its underlying narrative structure extremely seriously. I think that's true as a fact. Whether it's the right way for things to be is a different question, but oh, and also an important question. But I have no idea how to conceptualize our relationship with psychedelics. So let me tell you my most paranoid thought about this, okay? You tell me what you think about this.
Yeah.
So on the one hand, you have this, the most extreme idea on the one hand is that psychedelic experience is a gateway to something that's actually divine. And God only knows what the significance of that is. But here's another thought. There's this, you know, that parasites can hijack nervous systems. So there's this one example of I may not get this story exactly right, but there's this parasite that hijacks ants' nervous systems and the insects. It makes them climb up like a stalk, and they pincer themselves to a leaf, and then their body fills up with the parasite spores, and they explode, and the parasites go everywhere. And so the parasite has evolved to hijack the ant's nervous system. And there's plenty of examples of parasites doing that sort of complex thing over time. There's a parasite that lives in cats that makes rats less fearful, and they're more likely to be caught by cats, which is quite interesting. And so then I'm thinking about psilocybin, and it's this mushroom, and it produces this chemical, and nobody really knows what good the chemical is to the mushroom, and it has this immense effect on us. And like, have we been using psilocybin for 500,000 years, and have we been distributing its spores everywhere? And is it a parasite that's hijacked our nervous system? And the way it's done that is by producing this religious experience that we value. I mean, that's the most devastating materialistic critique of this psychedelic idea that I've been able to formulate. And I mean, one piece of counter evidence to that, I think, is the fact that I think the evidence seems to suggest that the psychedelic experience is salutary from the perspective of mental and physical health rather than destructive. But it looks like we've been using mushrooms for God only knows how long. I mean, it's certainly tens of thousands of years. It's certainly at least as far back as the last ice age. And God only knows how far back it is before that. It's what, as a biological thinker, say, what are your thoughts about that? Yeah.
I don't know if I can take that on. I don't understand. I mean, it's a huge mystery, and and what role do these experiences play in the evolution of culture? So,
let's start with that one.
Well, and so, what roles do religions play in the evolution of culture? And, a really important and central role, right?
The central role, like, it looks to me like integrated cultures, there's no distinction between their ritual and their dance and their music and their stories and their religion. That's all one thing. It's the central source of meaning that enables them to live as individuals and that unites them as a people. So that seems clear. So you can't just push the religious idea off to the side. That's a mistake. And I think the data for that are in. And so it's central. Well, now it seems shaped by these psychedelic experiences. So what the hell are we supposed to make of that? I don't even know what to make of that, either epistemologically, as a theory of knowledge, or ontologically. I don't know what that says about the structure of reality itself.
Well, let's see. It provides an evolutionary explanation for why, why that might have been conserved, right? That there's something super adaptive about the religious experience in terms of evolution of culture and organization of culture.
Well, I think, look, when I've tried to reduce this, I mean, that experience of awe. So we went to a whole conference on that. So if you see someone that you really admire, that shades into awe, and you can see that in the effect that celebrities have on the public. It can be paralyzing. So the admiration, there's a continuum between admiration and awe. And then you can easily make the case, I think, that admiration is the felt sense of the instinct to imitate. So you see children, maybe they'll hero worship someone, and then they'll imitate them, they'll copy them. They find someone who's in that zone of proximal development, and they start to copy them. Or they'll take on the identity of a hero or heroine in a movie. My little granddaughter, who's 3, for a year now, literally a year, she has 2 names, Scarlett and Ellie, Elizabeth. And we kind of call her one or the other. And if you ask her, is she Scarlett? She'll say yes. Is she Ellie? Yes. Is she Pocahontas? Yes. Is she Scarlett, Ellie, or Pocahontas? Pocahontas. 1 year. Now, she watched that Disney movie over and over, and she has a Pocahontas doll. But she's picked that figure, and that's quasi-mythological figure, obviously, not a historical figure. She's picked that as her identity. And I see that as we can imitate people. We talked about reality and hyper-reality before. Well, you can find someone you admire and they're real, or you can find someone who's a mythological figure and they're hyper-real. And the hyper-reality is so adaptive that imitating the hyper-real is more adaptive than imitating the real. And that's, to me, that's the essence of the religious instinct. It's to derive the hyper-real and then to imitate that. And I think that's what worship means, essentially, all with everything stripped away. And so that's a profound instinct, because human beings are unbelievable mimics. I mean, that's a very underappreciated element of our cognitive architecture, a fundamental element. And that instinct to admire and experience awe facilitates that mimicry, and that increases the probability of the manifestation of complex adaptive behavior. Okay, so, and then what that makes of the religious domain something real, as far as I'm concerned, even real from the biological sense. But that deepens the mystery of the involvement of the psychedelics in that. Like, are they parasitizing that? Or are they, like cocaine hyperstimulates the psychomotor stimulant system? Well, does psychedelics hyperstimulate the imitation awe system? And is that an illusion, or is it in fact the revelation of something deeper?
To circle back to the ontological question. So just recently I listened to a lecture that Francis Collins gave. Now, so Francis Collins, you may recognize, is director of the National Institutes on Health, and he was also the director of the Human Genome Project. So he's as strongly credentialed a scientist as one can have, and yet he's a absolutely confirmed Christian. And so he was giving a lecture on the reconciliation of, I think he called it harmonization of a scientific and religious worldview. But he was laying out his arguments for the existence of God. And one of them is what would be his claim, and it's an interesting claim, and you could argue it, but the existence of moral law, that there is an absolute moral law.
Well, look, I looked at Jack Panksepp's work, and he shows that you see complex morality emerge in rats in play, iterated play, which is a crucial issue, right? What pattern of behavior is sustainably optimal across repeated social interactions? Well, you hear all these postmodern critique, say, of hierarchical structure because of its predication on power. I think no. Corrupt hierarchies are predicated on power. Functional hierarchies are predicated on reciprocity, on productive reciprocity. Now, I was talking to this Jocko Willink, who was the commander of Fallujah in the 20 years ago.
Sorry, I got to pause there for the moment. This is Mind Talker Thomas. I'm going to go over to Bill's place here in the village of Arroyo Grande. I hope you're there. Because that's where I'm going to go hang out for a little while. Have a Coca-Cola, talk with some friends. Cheers, y'all. It's pretty intense talk from Jordan Peterson, wasn't it? I'm sorry we couldn't listen to the whole thing. But it sounds like, in general, the conclusion over psychedelic medicine, such as psilocybin mushrooms, is inconclusive. Which kind of makes sense, considering the scientific method. Anyway, see you at Bill's place. Thank you so much for tuning in to My Talker Show. 3:49 p.m., Monday, September 26, 2022. Have a fantastic rest of your day and evening.